not only is he running around outside of the pocket, but he's getting tackled and like parallel to the ground and like throws it up and it still goes 30 yards and then hits his receiver right in the face. And his receiver just... It's so bad.
I mean, to be fair to the receiver, I wouldn't be expecting a pass coming my way.
Absolutely not.
Happening.
And not that fast either. So, because that was like a rocket and then... Oh,
it was
man.
like a Jedi throw, though. I remember that one. He's literally parallel to the field.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And a good height. And he just...
Yeah, it was... I was like, there's no way. It was like the whole game looked like he was just going to get tackled any second, and then he'd do some crazy throw, and then...
And it would bounce off his receiver and go right to the the Buccaneers defense.
Yeah, defense. And then he's just like, what are you going to do? Oh, well. Maybe next year will be better. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe next year Brady will win in a different way.
Maybe Brady will win on a different team.
Yeah.
He just goes
kind of his MO now.
to every team now.
Just Brady and Gronk just traveling to different teams.
Oh, man. That would be... Would you accept him on the Bills? Would you be like, okay, this season, Brady?
Of course.
I think
I'll take a Super Bowl. Yeah,
exactly.
I would say that I wouldn't have to be a fan of his for too long because, he's got to retire soon. But I'm not sure that's true anymore.
I don't know. I feel like he's going to play into his 50s. Maybe.
If he's still winning, why would he retire?
Why would you stop? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we are your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
Yeah, basically we're just two regular dudes. We drink beer. We talk about Magic with a focus on Magic the Gathering Arena and competitive play.
Yes, and we have a great show for you guys today. We have a new segment that's pretty exciting. It's called Top Tier or Outta Here.
Love it.
Love it. But first, before we get into that, each week we both bring a beer, we drink our own, then drink each other's, then rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right, today I brought Cup and Saucer. It's an English ale out of Manitoulin Brewing. It's 5%. The can's nice. It's kind of pink tones. Kind of looks like a scenic mountain hike, and there's a hiker at the top of the mountain. I actually picked this beer because when I went to my local liquor store the other day, all I wanted was to pick up some just ale. I didn't want a double dry hopped IPA. I didn't want a New England style hazy IPA. I just wanted an ale, maybe just a pale ale, and I absolutely could not find anything like that at all. Everything is, is fancy these days, especially at my liquor store because it's kind of small. So when I went to pick this up, I actually went to the larger one, and I just saw English pale ale. Close enough. Let's get that.
Snag it.
Yeah. What'd you bring?
I'm not sure if this is actually the name, but it definitely says it on the can, so I'm still going to say it. LDV, which is a coffee vanilla imperial stout from Sawdust Brewing Company. So it's an imperial stout, 9%, and the can is just black with some cool gold and purple lettering. And it tastes, that's what it tastes like. It's a punch.
Love it.
I decided to choose this one because, I'm always interested in imperial stouts. And, anytime I see one, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to bring this in.
Huh. That sounds oddly familiar. Mm-hmm. That's almost like something I would do.
Huh, interesting. It's almost like you picked both the beers.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. Anyway, we do have a little bit of Magic news, but it's mainly just people on Twitter talking about Tybalt's trickery and whether it should get banned or not.
I fully think we should just make this a mini segment where we start every show with the Twitter MTG community drama.
We should, yeah. If you like this, tell us, and then we'll just make it a segment because we always know what's going on. Anyway, everyone's always looking at a card from a new set and yelling for bans. However, this one doesn't seem to, consistent. So
yeah, I mean, the rule on Cascade and how they work with MDFCs is pretty stupid, I think. Like, it makes sense to me that you can cast the backside of Tibble off of Tibble's Trickery, because all it says is cast whatever card you hit, and you're allowed to cast either side of this card.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense to me is Cascade. You can Cascade into Valky and then cast Tybalt for free.
Yeah.
Because Cascade specifically says it has to have a certain converted mana cost, so I don't think you should be allowed to choose the other side.
Yep, that does make sense. I think they might just change. If they're going to do something, it feels like they'll just change the way that the MDFCs work when they're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of worried about. In order to keep the rules consistent, they might have to make some big sweeping change that gets rid of cool stuff. But I don't know. I don't play the formats where this is a problem.
Exactly.
So, I feel like my opinion doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we don't really have Cascade on Arena, so it doesn't matter as much to us. But it is something to be looking out for. Might be a rules change for MDFCs. So watch out for that.
Might get some splash damage.
Yeah, with just random stuff will happen to us. So, but yeah, how did your Arena week go?
It went well. I played in the Star City Games events over the past weekend.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I played, I think I've explained this before, but they run these things called satellites on Friday and Saturday. And if you do well enough in the satellite, you qualify for the big tournament on Sunday. So there's, I think, 8 satellites. You can play in as many as you want. I played in number 7. And I went 5-1. So that was good enough to qualify for the Sunday event. I set 2 alarms, so I didn't sleep through it this time. But I did scrub out immediately, so maybe I would have preferred to sleep through it so that I could have an excuse for not doing it.
It's like, what are you going to do? Sleep through it again? Whoops. Guess I'll try next time. Yeah.
But the nice thing about the satellites, too, is if you go 5-1 or better, you could also go 6-0. That automatically qualifies you for this... every month there's the Arena Mythic Championship qualifier thing.
Yep.
So I'm qualified for March.
Oh, just from getting to day 2. You don't even have to do well on day 2 to get there?
Well, for doing 5-1, because you also qualify for day 2 if you go 4-2 in the satellite.
Okay.
But if you go 5-1 or better, then you actually also qualify for the next month's monthly qualifier thing. Which was my goal for the season, to qualify for March's tournament. So I did that.
Well, there you go. Boom.
No reason to make top 1200 Mythic now.
Perfect. That is great. Yeah, my Arena week was all right. I was just kind of playing some standard, trying to get my handle on or get a handle on it a little bit. And I think I did. I don't really know. Saw a lot of
I guess
decks.
we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out. But I did build up some bullshit decks for bingo, which was pretty fun. And just playing the sub game of like, you built something specifically only to do like 1 or 2 things, and winning is not one of them. So
right.
You're just
Zach sent me a message. I just checked the Discord, and all of a sudden there's like 4 screenshots of him doing these bingo things. I was like, holy crap, all in one night, man, you killed it. And he just says, thanks, I lost all of these games.
It's true. Yeah. Basically the package is like most of the time counter spells and like wraths or something.
Yeah, just to survive until.
And then you just put your combo in and just like try to get there.
I wasn't surprised you lost the Ox Plow one, but when you cast Ugin off the replicating rings, that board state you sent looked like you were going to win.
No, I ended up losing that, yeah. It's because I had already hard casted 2 Ugins before that without the rings.
I see.
Because I just had to keep wiping the board, and that's all I had to wipe
right.
with. It was pretty bad. And the Ox Plow thing, I was really close. I did my, like, turn 2 plow, turn 3, you play the Ox, and then you crew the plow, and you attack. And then they ended up not blocking because they didn't want to trade with it. And then I used the 3 mana to give it +1/+1 and double strike with Kaya's Onslaught. And that was...
Oh, nice.
That was what I wanted to do. That was pretty sweet. I was like, okay, I did it. But
it's like extending the combo.
Yeah, I ended up still losing that game, which is annoying. But the rest of the deck was just a bunch of like power doublers and like double striking stuff.
Okay, but explain this one to me. How could you possibly lose when you foretell Doom Foretold?
How could I?
Literally foretelling Doom.
Yeah.
Foretold.
It turns out when you're playing against white weenie decks, they can play a bunch of little stupid things, and they never have to sacrifice the one important creature.
More on that later.
Yeah, more on that later. But that's how that went. And I ended up actually doing the standard metagame challenge and went 4-3, which is pretty nice. Much better than I thought. So,
yeah. 4-3.
4-1. Sorry.
I was like, it's just one loss.
I'm used to
tried it 3 times and you amassed 4 wins.
No. Sorry, I went 4-1. Yeah. I'm just used to saying 3 as that was the loss. Or
right.
whatever.
That's usually the exit.
But it is.
count.
Yeah. It was. I went 4-1, which was good. I liked that. I felt better than I went in not having really high hopes, and then ended up being like, wow, this is actually pretty great. I'm surprised.
I actually played it one time last night because I didn't realize it was a thing, and then on Monday night I was just like, oh, I can still play in this. Well, I'll give it a shot, and I went 3-1. So you beat me.
Hey, yeah.
I played Snogs. I just tried to splash snow stuff into the Rogues deck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because it's I'll talk more about it later when we talk about Rogues, but it wasn't that good. So.
But yeah, we are going to talk a little bit about Kaldheim Limited, but I think we might just jump straight into our main topic because we can always talk about that later. I haven't been playing a bunch of it anymore.
And to be honest, I don't know really what to tell you on Kaldheim Limited. I'm certainly no expert.
It's super complicated, and I'll probably draft a lot more actually, because I still feel like I haven't really grasped it yet. So
yeah, I'm just loving Standard right now, so I've barely played any Limited actually.
Yeah. Same actually. It's been good. So anyway, here into our new segment title. Love this. Jeff came up with this one. It's great. So
we workshopped it.
Yeah, but
there's a few iterations.
Well, it was your idea, and you came up with the final name, so that's why I gave you the credit. You don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
But it is called.
I just want to look humble or sound humble.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. So it is top tier or out of here. Basically, we're explaining. We're talking about the new decks that we're seeing from the standard kind of mix-up now that we have a new set, and whether we think that deck is going to be top tier or if it's going to get out of here.
Yeah.
See, it's pretty simple, the title kind of says everything.
It explains itself, yeah.
Yeah, I should have probably said that.
Is it... And out of here doesn't mean no one will play it, but it's kind of fringe.
Yeah, it just won't show up as much, or,
Because people will always just play a deck they love, even if it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I know this because every tournament I run into the person who loves whatever bad deck is really good against whatever I brought. And I always just run into them. I'm like, oh, nobody plays this deck. I could see from the metagame count that you're the only one who brought it.
And I was just so unlucky.
Never beat it.
I'm always by that.
It's like when Jund Food was in Standard, but nobody played it anymore, and I brought this blue-black control deck that beats the blue-white control deck that everyone was playing, but it had no chance against Jund Food, and I run into this guy. This was back when in paper, and he sits across from me, and he plays the oven on turn 1. I was like, oh no. He's like, yeah, I know this deck's not good anymore, but this is the deck I had, from a few seasons ago, and so I just figured, what the hell, I'll bring it out and see how it does. It's like, oh man, you're gonna have a really easy time in this match. That deck was just way too grindy, because my deck was all 1-for-1 removal. How am I supposed to beat something that sacrifices all its permanents for value at instant speed?
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, and I ran into Teamer Ultimatum with my Rakdos deck this weekend, so I was like, and it was literally a 75 from last season. There were no new cards. It was just like, yeah.
Well, when we get to that, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But first, up front, we are kind of predicting the metagame going forward, but it's really hard.
Predicting metagames is you're never going to get it totally right.
People get this wrong all the time. Pros get this wrong. They know a lot more than we do. We're just having fun.
It's just constantly changing. So.
Yeah. So as of right now, this is what we think.
Yeah.
It could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could change before the podcast comes out.
Yeah, exactly. So if you lose the tournament that you play in, don't blame us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, anyway, Jeff, would you like to start us off with the first deck we're going to look
All right,
at?
so the first deck's a newcomer. I wanted to start with a newcomer. We are going to throw in some of the decks from last season, see if we still think they'll continue to be good.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like we have to start with Rakdos. So this is being termed Rakdos midrange, but it kind of comes in two variants. There's the Sacrifice variant, which plays cards like Claim the Firstborn, and Village Rights. So the idea is you're stealing your opponent's creatures and then sacrificing them for value of your own. And then there's another build that doesn't play any of the... Like, it maybe plays threaten effects, but they're in the sideboard. And it doesn't really play a ton of ways to sacrifice its own creatures. It just kind of plays good red and black cards. So those are the kind of the two builds going on. And they seem pretty evenly split. Like, every time I look... Oh, Rakdos midrange, what is it? It feels like it's the sack build half the time and just the value cards the other half of the time.
Yeah.
I personally played the sack build. So I played Rakdos midrange with Sacrifice theme in the Star City Games event.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt great. I felt like I was favored in all the big matchups that you know from previous seasons. Like, I felt good against Rogues. I felt good against... Gruul. I felt really good against this Is It deck that a lot of people brought. And then I saw the numbers reflect that. So we have like a chart of the data that came out of this past week.
Yeah, so Rakdos ended up doing very well. Almost the best.
I would say it did the best because it has... Okay, so it has 0.1% lower win rate than Sultimatum.
I know, I'm just...
But it has 3 times as many decks.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's harder to get that win rate.
But basically, yeah. So it basically did the best with 56.3%. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, the matchups it does badly with are like, big rampy decks. Like you were saying, Temur Ultimatum and Sultai. But everything else, all the stuff, hey, if you hate rogues, which, a lot of people hate rogues, this deck, like, rips it up. It did so well. It did, like, 76.7% against rogues, which is a lot. So, hey, if you're a player that hates rogues, try this out.
Yeah, so I played a lot of rogues last season. And the Rakdos deck was kind of around, and people would always say, oh, the only reason to play it is it's good against rogues. And I didn't even think that was true, because I could beat it pretty easily with rogues last season. The big difference is that now they have Valky, and I think that means that gives Rakdos so much advantage against rogues, because it used to be that, okay, I can navigate as a rogues player so that they have to bring back Kroxa, and then I just steal it because there's the card that steals creatures.
Yes.
Lol Mage's Domination.
Right.
But when I was playing Rakdos this weekend, I played against a Rogues Mirror, and I basically forced them into a spot where they had to tap out the Rogues player. And then I was 100% sure that their plan was, okay, I'm going to tap out, he's going to bring back Kroxa, and I'm going to steal it.
Yeah.
And so I just played Tybalt onto an empty board with my opponent tapped out, and they just conceded.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing that beats that.
Exactly.
So it was just like, this is a big difference between before. Because before it was always kind of risky to play a Kroxa, because if they steal it, then it's like, well, I could steal it back, I guess, or I could kill my own Kroxa.
Or sack it or something, but...
Yeah, I always found as rogues you could kind of tempo them out. Make them tap out for Kroxa every turn. You're just discarding a card. You have so much card advantage that it's okay.
Exactly.
But now with like Valky, they get to see your hand if they want, and then they get Tybalt later. It's rough.
Yeah.
And that shows in the numbers, right? The 76%.
Exactly.
I think this deck is awesome. It loses to big mana decks. It's the classic mid-range versus big mana. That's just, I don't think there's any way to fix that either. Like, you're just going to lose to the big mana decks. But yeah, this might be the current kind of deck to beat.
Yeah. So there you go. I definitely agree that it's the deck to beat, especially looking at these numbers. And these are the kind of things that people will look at as we are right now and be like, hey, start playing this deck, or get ready to play against this deck or all those kinds of things. And you were saying earlier that you were frustrated that because you didn't do super well on day 2, because now if you bring this deck to a tournament, people will be expecting it and they're going to have all this new tech against it.
Yeah, right. I was frustrated when I scrubbed out of the event because I was like, I felt like I had the right read on the metagame and picked a good deck to do well in the event. So it always sucks when you don't convert that, because there's going to be times when you guess wrong and you bring a shit deck. So you're just kind of screwed. Yeah. So when you have the good deck, you hope that you're able to make it happen.
You draw your lands right.
Yeah, that was my big mistake. I should have put like 3 more lands in my deck. That's what I'll do next time. Just play 32 lands. So that... yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is it's kind of funny what happened if you look at the Star City games. Like I said, they have 8 satellites, right? So there's 4 on Friday and 4 on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I think there was very few Rakdos decks in the first one, but one of them did really well. And then in the next one, there's a few more. And like literally as the satellites go on, the number of Rakdos mid-range decks is just like blowing up in each event. Like there's a bunch more in every subsequent event. And then to the point where in the like Sunday big tournament, it's the most popular deck. It was just like slowly building up over the weekend until the Sunday culmination when it's the most popular.
So is this the kind of information where people see the first satellite finish and then choose their deck based on that?
So the second one will have started before the first one's over, but the third one wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So there's overlap. So people in the third one have data. They have like 1.5 tournaments of data.
Yeah. So does that make you want to play later or would you rather play earlier so you have the advantage of...
Depends if you're on the right deck. I would have wanted to play the first one probably, but I still did well, so it doesn't well enough, so it doesn't matter. But the other funny thing that happened is rogues steadily plummeted. And then in the Sunday event, the Sultai Ultimatum numbers like more than tripled from the total of everyone who played it in the satellites.
Oh, really?
Because everyone saw that everyone's playing Rakdos and Sultai Ultimatum just stomps Rakdos. So that became the second most popular deck.
Yeah.
So it's just like within one weekend, everyone kind of realized Rakdos was awesome and either decided to just play it or to try to fight it.
Yeah.
And the tournament was won by Sultai Ultimatum.
So there you go. Take that information.
Yeah, so I don't know. I got to slap top tier on this one. What do you think?
I think, I will say top tier as well. I think that Rakdos is going to be around for a while and has been helped a lot with a better mana base. And
some huge cards like Throne of Death is so good. It's just really good in that deck.
Yeah,
it's a turn 1 engine that basically draws you cards for free because anytime it mills an escape creature, you just draw cards,
of course.
Essentially.
Yeah,
and it also can physically you can force it to draw you a card if it's not behaving by tapping 3.
Oh, well, fantastic. Yep. So our first top tier deck. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about Izzet. You were mentioning a little bit about it.
So I played against this a reasonable amount in the satellite. I mentioned I was satellite number 7, so by this point, fewer people were playing this deck, and more people were on Rakdos. This is, as I understand it, this is a deck that Luis Scott Vargas put together.
Okay.
And he played it on his stream during the pre-release event for streamers. And he was just crushing people with it. And so it just kind of spread like wildfire, and suddenly everyone's talking about it. If you haven't seen or heard of this deck, it's just blue-red, and the whole plan is to play Goldspan Dragon and protect it with counterspells for the rest of the game and win. That's basically plan A. Plan B is Brazen Borrowers and stuff, and Shark tokens. But really you want Goldspan Dragon as your finisher, and you just want to protect it with counterspells. Because it's really hard to kill a Goldspan Dragon through a counterspell, because if you target it, it makes 2 mana. So you target it to kill it, that makes the 2 mana for the counterspell.
It's so awesome. It makes it so that if you have one in your hand, you play it on turn 5 because you will have the mana for the counterspell just by attacking. Even if the counterspell costs 3, you attack with it, you get 1 treasure, they target it, you get another treasure, that's 4.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this card is crazy. I put Soul Shatter in my deck because of it, which is 3 mana instant. Target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest converted mana cost they control. So they don't even get anything. So if they tap out for it, you hit them with that.
Yes.
But I mean, Soul Shatter is not a great card, so it's like I have to play this because I have to respect Goldspan Dragon. Oh, and I want to say that I was playing 3 Goldspans in my Rakdos list myself. Not everyone plays it. I just think it's too good not to play.
I think it's really good.
But I don't think this deck is good. I think part of its early success is because people just didn't know how to play it. Basically, play against it, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like, I lost a game really early on to it because I used Valky, I looked at my opponent's hand, I knew I had to take Bone Crusher Giant, otherwise they just stopped my Valky, so it's like, I can't take their Goldspan Dragon.
Yeah.
But they had nothing to protect it, and I had 2 removal spells. So I was like, okay, I'll let them, in 2 turns, they're going to play their Goldspan Dragon, but unless they literally top deck counterspell, then I'm just going to get rid of it and we'll be fine. And they did that, and I lost the game. And so I was like, well, that was super unlucky. But I was thinking about it later. I was like, well, their deck is all counterspells. I should have just basically, because I tapped out for something on my turn, let them play the Goldspan knowing I could kill it. I should have just held my Soul Shatter and not let them get any mana from their Goldspan at all. So you have to just realize that that's how they win, even though it's unlikely they draw counterspell. Why even give them the possibility to do that? And once I started playing like that, like just never let them Goldspan under any circumstance, basically, even if it makes your turns really awkward, I started just smashing this deck. Because it's very one-dimensional. It's just Goldspan, so...
Yeah, it is.
I mean...
this is the deck I played to go 4-1.
Nice.
I was playing it a bit just because I wanted to see what the hubbub was about, and I like it. I mean, it's hard not to like when you're playing Goldspan Dragon, which is a sweet card. You get to play 4 Bone Crusher and 4 Brazen Borrow and 4 Shark Typhoon. Like, it's like, okay, this is a pretty sweet. These are all cards I like, so it's hard not to be like, well, I'll play the cards I like. And then there's some other counter spells and stuff. It's so that's kind of nice. Also, Faceless Haven is an awesome card.
Yeah, Faceless Haven is nuts. I see people playing a Grixis version of this, where they play black for like the removal spells. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a mistake. This deck needs to be snow for Faceless Haven.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of its game, I think. Because sometimes it just draws nothing. It just draws a mid full of like do nothing cards.
Exactly.
And 4 mana draw spells and stuff, and doesn't hit its gold spans. And you need some way to be proactive in that time. So I don't think you should be playing... Because basically the first event, someone went 6-0 with this deck, but they played black as well for like Heartless Act and stuff. And so everyone started copying that. And I think if you're going to play this, you need to be playing...
Snow.
Faceless Haven.
Yeah, I agree as well. I do like Faceless Haven quite a bit. Originally I was like, it doesn't seem that great, but it's good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, but I think the reason this deck is popular is because what you said, that it just has a lot of cards people like, and B, just because Luis Scott Vargas was
totally
pushing it. I think now maybe it's so good that like in Luis's hand he's gonna win a lot with it. But you can say that about almost anything, right? Like, I'm not going to play a deck because Paolo won with it, because I know I'm not going to recreate
what he does. Yeah. Well, if you look at the deck and you're like, well, he played it, so I should play it. And like, I'm not exactly sure how he did that, and I would make some changes, but I'll play this. But I do see what you're saying. I do see some of its shortcomings, and there are times where I'm just like, man, I really am getting just torn apart by some other decks, or anything that has like tons of creatures or different kinds of things that I take too long to get everything going, and Brazen Borrower becomes horrible because bouncing stuff is just like not good when they're just like 1/1s or 2/1s. But I think something will come out of this. I think there will be a better version built. I think this might be the time to be like, all right, let's go back and fix some stuff and change some things around. But I think we will still see it, but I think I'm agreeing with you. It's probably out of here.
Yeah. I went with out of here for this.
Just straight up.
Yeah, it won't exist in its current form. It needs to evolve because I
Yes.
think people have figured out how to play against it. I've only played against it, and I realized the only times I lost to it were mistakes on my part. And once I started to correct those, this deck almost became free wins. And if you look at its win rate against Rakdos I was playing, yeah, it has a brutal, like Rakdos is 68% against it.
Yep. And it had a
So that lines up with how I felt. The other deck I play is Rogues, and Rogues also smashes this deck. So
yeah, exactly. So is it tempo is what they were calling it. I got a 47.9% for the February 1st to the 7th. So
right. I think the shocking part is that it lost to Temur Ultimatum, because you'd think cheap counterspells should beat 7-drop and 8-drops. Sorcery speed 7 and 8 drops. I would take the counterspell deck in that matchup.
yeah.
They got crushed by Temur Ultimatum. So
Hey, maybe Temur Ultimatum's pretty good.
yeah, we'll talk about that later. Spoiler. No, it's not.
Spoiler, we're gonna talk about it later. But let's keep it moving. Let's go to an oldie but a goodie, in my opinion.
Yeah, my favorite. I think it's like, I don't know if I would have ever played this deck if it weren't for this podcast.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. But now I'm like a diehard Rogues player. Like, I always want to go back to Rogues.
So we're talking Dimir Rogues.
Yeah.
This is a very this is the moment. Okay. People have been so frustrated about this deck for 3 months. It feels longer than that, but it's been like 3 months.
Yeah.
Because that's when it wasn't brought to light. And basically we're trying to see if it's going to go away. Now we have Kaldheim cards. Are there other decks that are going to impede on the Rogues? What's going to happen? I'm not super sure that's if it's really going to go anywhere. It's there are still people playing this deck. I think in the metagame we need this deck as well. It kind of becomes the thing where if you start sleeping on Rogues, it's going to come back in full force, because if you start taking out some of your sideboard cards against it, people are going to go back like, oh, you're going to make room for something else in your sideboard. If I play Rogues again, I can just tear through you. So you always have to respect the Rogues, in my opinion, and keep your sideboards with Rogues in mind. They'll pop up the pieces that even playing against Rakdos, some of those cards that get discarded into the yard will be helpful later.
So I actually played earlier today, and it was clear that people weren't respecting it, because I know this because I milled out an entire deck of a Gruul player post board. They had 0 escape creatures. So it's like, where are the Ox of Agonis? Where are the Phoenix? You're not respecting Rogues, so you deserved this loss.
Yeah. Like I would have lost if you had any of the pieces you're supposed to have, but you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, they had weird, like, their deck, it looked like they sideboarded nothing. They had that spider, Arana of the Endless Web, whenever someone cast it.
Yeah, I also saw that card.
What is going on with that? Because I played against 2 different Gruul players who clearly had this same list where they sideboarded in this spider.
I don't know
I'm
where...
like, that's not good against me. Don't side that in.
How big is that creature? Is it a...
I don't know. It's like a 2/4 reach or something, but it's just a 4-mana creature that I'll just counter, or...
I think it's...
like.
Does it have 5 toughness? I almost feel like it has 5 toughness.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean...
For Goldspan is my idea. Are they playing it to block Goldspan Dragon?
They're playing it for the Is It Tempo deck? Yeah, maybe. That would make more sense. And they're just like, maybe it's good against Rogues?
Yeah, and
it's not good against Rogues.
because you can just block all day, I guess? I don't know. It doesn't seem... I don't know.
But if you're playing green, why not just play Run Afoul? Right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why you... I don't know. I also saw that and was confused. I was like, why am I... Okay. And it didn't bother me at all. I just kept plowing through them. So,
Yeah.
I was even playing the deck. I guess I played another Goldspan and just went around it. But,
Yeah, this is the thing. It doesn't block Goldspan, like... It doesn't die, but it doesn't block it profitably. It's not like it's a 4/5.
Yeah, exactly.
So I still get to attack and get my treasure.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
So, Who knows? Who knows?
But yeah, so yeah, you're right. If people stop respecting rogues, it always comes back. I think you can't just take your deck from last season and expect it to do well with rogues. Because of the Rakdos menace we mentioned earlier, Rakdos so far has a pretty good matchup against rogues. I have some ideas for how I would fix that matchup. I've tried a couple of things. The 2-mana Grafdigger's Cage from Kaldheim really just destroyed them. I played it and they could do nothing for the rest of the game, and I just casually won. So it was like, oh, looks like you can't beat a Grafdigger's Cage with those 9 escape creatures in your graveyard. I'm just going to continue to mill you.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So there are options to make that matchup better, and I have some ideas. I'm currently going to switch to the big version. I've been standing by the Lurrus version forever.
Oh my gosh!
Switch to the Brazen Borrower.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because Zerasan I think is really good against Rakdos.
Ooh, okay, I can see that.
Because they mill themselves and they mill like
big stuff.
A Crone War, which is good against them. And so that's kind of my plan. And then I'm splashing red to play Valky myself, because Valky's really good against Rakdos as well. Because if you Valky a Kroxa and they don't have a removal spell, you're just attacking with a Kroxa on turn 3. So
that sounds...
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know because it happened to me in the Rakdos mirror. And I was like, oh, I kept the hand and I was like, if they have Valky plus another creature so that my Soul Shatter doesn't get their Valky, I'm going to lose. And that's exactly what they did. They just got a turn 2 Kroxa that doesn't go to the graveyard, basically. And took my Kroxa away. Yeah. So it was pretty backbreaking. So, and I'm just getting free red off of some pathways in case the Tybalt thing ever comes up, but I'm really just playing Valky. So I played one match with the deck. I smashed Gruul, and then that was it. So I don't know if this deck is the right way to build rogues yet or not, but it makes sense to me that this would counteract a little bit of the equity in the Rakdos rogues matchup.
Interesting.
Because I think rogues smashes it really beats the crap out of these slow Sultai decks that we've been seeing. So that's my incentive to play it. The only problem is if everyone's on Rakdos and that matchup is unfixable, then rogues isn't going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm hoping these Sultai players like punch the rogues, the Rakdos players out, because they kind of did that to me. So
to balance things out a little
rogues can come in and shine.
But no, I do think I'm going to say rogues is top tier. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving this one a top tier. It just needs, once there's a league weekend and like Paulo gets to figure out how to make it better, then everyone can copy his list. And
the main thing is that I don't think rogues needs as much work as the Izzet deck does. Rogues is already pretty strong, and there's some little tweaks that need to happen. I think the Izzet one needs a little bit of an overhaul. So that's why having different versions of the deck is totally fine.
That's the last thing I wanted to say about rogues is the other big change it needs to start respecting aggro, because there was no aggro deck in the previous format. Gruul Adventures was the closest thing. So like I wasn't even playing any sweepers in my sideboard at all. But now with potentially there are going to be real aggro decks in this format, and so
I'm pretty stoked about that.
You don't really just want to get run over by that, so you need to play the kind of crappy, what's the 1 mana that kills something of CMC 2 or less?
Oh yes, Bloodchief's Thirst.
Yeah, I had cut that card from my lists before because it's quote unquote flexible, but the 4 mana version is so bad. So I just I never played it. I never liked it. But you might have to bring that card back.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, Rogues is getting a top tier. Yeah. Before we move on to the next deck, I actually think that I need another beer.
Yeah, let's take a beer break.
Let's take a beer break. All right, Jeff, what are you drinking now?
Now I've got this LDV Coffee Vanilla Imperial Stout. I'm excited for this one.
All right.
When you picked this one, I was very excited because so I love a good Imperial
Once again,
Stout.
the joke is that because I picked both the ones for last week, I told Jeff to pick both the ones for this week. He ended up picking 5, and I found 2 that I could actually get my hands on.
Yeah.
And then from that, I decided...
I picked 5 then, because these were the ones that it looked like you were going to be able to get, were the last 2 that I picked up as ones that I felt like would be easier to get.
Well, that's good. Hey, that's really important. Because now I'm drinking this Cup and Saucer, this English ale. Man, this can's really gorgeous. I like that. Makes me want to go on a hike.
It is nice, right?
Yeah, it's just like they're like looking over a cliff at some trees. That's nice.
It totally worked on me. That's the reason that it drew my eye. And then when I saw it was just an ale.
It's an English ale. Man, I haven't been hiking in a really long time, and I kind of want to go do that again. So, I mean,
it's hard without a car in Toronto.
It's really hard without a car. Also, there's snow right now, which I mean isn't that terrible, but it'd be nicer.
Get some snowshoes.
That would be sweet. I like snowshoeing's great. I just need a car. Man, if I got a car, we'd be in business. Well, let's start a GoFundMe. Whoever wants to buy me a car.
Yeah. To drive us to our Magic tournaments.
Yes. Actually, really what it is to drive us to breweries to pick up beer. That's what it is.
There we go.
That's really what we need. We need it for other things. Anyway, side tangents out of the way. Let's jump back into our top tier or out of here segment. Going back to, this is Gruul / Naya Adventures. So it's really just the Adventures deck.
Yeah, it's the Gruul Adventures base.
Yes.
And some people are putting white into it to splash, a variety of cards. But the main reason to do it is Showdown of the Skalds.
Yes.
So, let me just check our win rate matrix. So it actually did break them up. So it has Naya Adventures and Gruul Aggro, which is Gruul Adventures, as 2 different decks. For the most part, Gruul seemed to do slightly better. But what's interesting to me is they succeeded in different matchups. Like, it seems like Naya Adventures gave up a lot of equity against Rogues from this splash.
Yeah.
But picked up some equity against Rakdos and Izzet. It also seems like Naya kind of dunked on Gruul.
It does.
I guess that makes sense because you have a lot of the same cards, but Showdown is kind of a mirror breaker.
Yeah.
And then Gruul did better against everything else, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, so basically they kind of are mirrors of each other. You would think that pushing them together would make them kind of even out a little bit. But no, it seems like what Gruul was bad against, Naya was good against, and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, very.
And with the caveat that Naya was good against Gruul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird. My inclination, based on playing against these decks and having played Gruul last season a little bit, is that I would stick with Gruul myself. I think that Gruul wasn't really hurting for card advantage, which is what Showdown of the Skalds provides. That's not what it needed. It had the Great Henge. It has Edgewell Innkeeper. And the other thing about Gruul is that its mana was always a little bit sus. Like, it has double red and it has double green, and it has a lot of tap lands, in the early game and stuff. And sometimes you just had to, play a pathway a certain way and hope you drew right. Hope you guessed right on the way you were drawing. So adding in more pathways to splash the white seems a bit sketchy to me. Like, you're accentuating basically the deck's one weakness, in my opinion, which is its mana. And like I said, I don't know how much you're actually adding because you already have a lot of sources of card advantage. You had Vivian, you had the Great Henge,
the Innkeepers,
you had the Edgewell Innkeepers.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with everything you're saying. I don't think that, especially because, I do like Showdown of the Skalds. I think that's a really good card, and it makes sense that you would want to put it into this package. But what you're saying is right. It's nice to get all those cards, and some counters to make your stuff bigger is helpful. But if you're playing, I don't know, Shepherd of the Flock and these other cards, they seem so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, Giant Killer, sure, but Giant Killer.
That's one thing I'm sure of. Shepherd of the Flock is bad.
Shepherd of the Flock is bad, and Giant Killer is just sad because it's a 1/2. If it was a 1/1, it'd be a lot different. But because it's a 1/2, it doesn't help out your Love Struck Beast. So it really, really pushes that down.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, quite a bit in my opinion. So it's just like.
Card would be better if it had one
less toughness. Yeah, if it was a 1/1, it would actually make the deck significantly better, I think. But still not maybe enough that I would totally play it. I do think Gruul Adventures is still better.
And the other consideration, though, is that one thing that didn't show up really at all this weekend is Esper Doom Foretold. And that was a deck that just dunked on Gruul. Mm-hmm. That was like Gruul's arch enemy, the only thing it did not want to face, really. And I think Showdown of the Skalds does help against them. So maybe if that deck reemerges and starts to become popular, then you might consider splashing white back into your Gruul. But I'd say for now, let's go with Gruul and stop with the greedy white splash. That kind of, it's a very powerful card that you're adding, but it doesn't give the deck any dimensions that it was lacking. Mm-hmm. At least that was my feeling, but looking at the numbers, I might just be wrong because it seemed to invert every matchup.
Yeah,
adding this card. But.
Yeah, It is hard.
I kind of think it's an outlier, the Rakdos midrange versus Naya Adventures, that Naya is favored because I had a really easy time beating that deck. So based on my sort of anecdotal evidence, mm-hmm. that feels like just a small numbers thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you could possibly... I don't know. It would be an interesting thing. So seeing that Naya did so well against Gruul aggro, just in their kind of like match against each other, it would be fun to play a Gruul aggro deck with splashing a Naya version in your sideboard, depending on your matchup. Because you can keep the mana base the same if you just have all the pathways.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not the same, though. Like, you can't fetch for a Needle Verge pathway.
That's true. I guess maybe, put a couple planes in your sideboard. But...
Oh, I hate that even more.
It would be interesting. Literally.
So many double greens. You're going to draw planes and...
So what you do is you...
Embercleave in the Great Hand.
You side out all your good cards to get some mediocre white cards in.
Of course.
So that you can fulfill the statistics.
Yeah. So I think going forward, I'm giving Gruul top tier and Naya out of here. And what I mean by that is Gruul will be a mainstay of the format. And Naya will be something that shows up when the metagame kind of demands it. Mm-hmm. Like some people will splash white. Kind of like the Sultai 4-color mid-range thing that happens in Historic, where Sultai is the deck, but sometimes people splash white if they're expecting a lot of sacrifice.
Yes. Yep, I agree with that. I think that's right. Yeah, so kind of, these two decks that were huge in the last bit, the Dimir Rogues and the Gruul aggro, I think they're here to stay for now. And I don't think they're going to go anywhere. So
they're just too rawly powerful, I think, to dismiss them.
So
especially Gruul. Like, Gruul's still the best deck if it's on the play and it just turn 4 Great Henges you. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on, we're looking at Sultai Control now.
Yeah. So what is this deck?
So this deck, it seems it's really that Dimir Control deck that we were seeing a lot of before, kind of with like I believe the Yorion build, but now we have Binding the Old Gods, which is
right. So you bring in green to play Binding the Old Gods. Probably some other stuff. I played against it a couple of times. I don't remember exactly what they had on their sideboard, wilts and stuff like that, because blue-black is weak against artifacts and enchantments, so it also gives you that angle.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Binding the Old Gods is good with the Yorion you're already playing, I think is the idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you've ever played against that blue-black Dimir control deck, they've kind of cut the Ashioks and the Loch Ness monster. I forget what
Lochmere
card's
Serpent.
actually called. Lochmere Serpent. Thanks. Yeah.
The Loch Ness
In favor of having this binding the old gods, and some of them play the Cosmos Serpent, Coma, as a win condition instead. So it's kind of a considerably more powerful win condition, I would say.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that.
But it's sorcery speed, right? The Lochmere Serpent has flash. So it plays,
that is true.
So the deck basically tones down its instant speed game plan to tap out for stuff like Binding the Old Gods and Coma. Whereas the blue-black deck really was just trying to counter everything you do and then flash in a Lochmere Serpent or an Ugin, or just Ugin you away or something. Now, that being said, I actually never thought that Dimir deck was very good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like some great players played it in the MPL, in the Zendikar Rising championship.
The championship, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there must be something there, but every time I played against it, I just felt like, man, this deck is so anemic. Like, it just plays so many bad cards.
Yeah.
It plays a lot of good cards, but it also plays a lot of bad cards. So I guess that is the idea here, is adding green ups the overall card quality. But I don't know, like you're adding a 4-mana sorcery speed removal spell that to a metagame that's turning out to be a faster metagame than the previous one. You know what I mean? So you're taking the slow deck from the previous format, slowing it down by making it no longer interact at instant speed, and then the metagame is moving in a direction that makes it go faster. That's what I don't.
What is interesting,
really like about this deck.
I like Binding the Old Gods. I think it's pretty great, but it is interesting. Like the Esper version just seems a bit stronger because you can play the Skyclave Apparition, and then Elspeth Conquers Death. Obviously doesn't hit everything, but bringing back a threat from the graveyard is so huge. And that, Binding the Old Gods does one great thing and two,
it does one great thing, one good thing, and one meaningless thing.
Meaningless thing most of the time.
Like, the Death Touch is not used by this deck.
Exactly.
Really.
Now, if they were splashing for Finn the Fangbearer,
is this better than Esper? Yeah.
Yeah, but that is the thing. Like, is this better than Esper? Why are they not playing Esper?
So how did this deck do against Gruul?
It did really bad. It was 39%.
39% against Gruul.
Yeah.
And 18.8 against Sultai Ultimatum.
So, like, what if you're playing...
And it loses to Rakdos.
It just
It somehow loses to Izzet.
So it beats Dimir Rogues, and it beats Nigh Adventures, and is 50% against Boros Aggro. That's kind of interesting. Just like flat. But
just clean even.
Clean even on that.
That tells me small. That tells me it's small sample size.
Yes.
There's like 10 games and it won 5. Whenever you see a number that clean, that's just what it makes me
There's
think
no decimals, but it really just makes me think, like, I don't know why you're not playing Esper. I mean, obviously you don't have Coma or anything, but you could still play the Serpent, the Lochmere Serpent in Esper.
I guess it depends what you're trying to beat, but if it doesn't beat Gruul, I don't think you can play it as a control deck.
Also interesting to mention,
this doesn't beat Gruul or Rakdos, which I think are basically going to be two of the most popular decks going forward.
Yeah, but I do think it's interesting to mention that everyone was all up in arms about Doomscar, talking about it all over the place. We even said it was I think it's definitely worth a slot. Where is Doomscar?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Nobody wants to play white except in aggro decks, and you don't really want Doomscar.
You don't want Doomscar in aggro decks, but it just seems really interesting. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess Doomscar with Skyclave Apparition isn't fantastic because then you're wiping your board but giving them creatures back. But I don't know. It seems it's just surprising from what we had seen. We were expecting a lot of Doomscar stuff, I guess. I still think it's worth playing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking Esper. You have some pieces that you just don't have in this deck. I would like to see what it would do in a Esper build. So
Yeah, and my overall issue with this deck, I guess, is it has Yorion, but Yorion is kind of a side piece. Because that's how the Dimir deck worked. It didn't really take advantage of Yorion. Mm-hmm. And then this deck is now trying to change that and actually start taking advantage of Yorion again. But the Esper deck already did that really well. So I don't know why you're not just using the Esper version.
Exactly. And it wasn't like the Yorion bit, they were almost doing it just to like give the middle finger to rogues. To be like, well, you're not going to mill us,
yeah.
So you have to do damage.
Although I've milled out so many Yorion decks with rogues. It's actually not as far-fetched as you'd think.
But it is, you feel good after you do it. But it definitely, it goes in consideration when you're playing and then you look over their deck and they're like, oh, they still have 60-something cards left? Okay. Maybe I should stop trying to mill them. I should focus on other things.
But my most important critique of this deck is that I don't know why people think it's cool to just play 4 Maze Mind Tomes in your main deck. That card is so bad. Like, it's really good in a control mirror match and bad everywhere else. Move that card to your sideboard. What are you doing?
It does seem not great. I don't know. Like,
you're playing Jam Day Tome 4, man.
It's like, I just want to scry all the time and sometimes draw a card. And then gain for life.
Yeah.
I mean, the gain for life actually frustrates me a lot most of the time, but I also don't think it's great. Most of the time when I'm looking at a deck list, I'm like, can I get rid of this card?
So I meant to say this when it was Is It, but my feeling is like I think a deck is bad when I'm hoping that when I see my opponent's deck list in the next round, it's that. And that's how I was feeling about Is It. Whether whenever I'm playing, I'm just like, come on, Is It tempo? Like, and it's just something else like, damn it. That's when I know that I don't think Is It tempo's a good deck.
Yeah.
I have the same thing here. When there's a spell my opponent plays and I never bother to counter it, despite having 3 counter spells in my hand as a rogues player, I know that I don't respect that card. And Maze Mind Tome is that card. Mm-hmm. It happens all the time. They're like, I'm going to test them with Maze Mind Tome. I'm like, auto resolves. No problem with that. Go for it. You're going to die before that card is relevant. Now, what was the real spell that I'm going to counter?
Please spend the rest of your turns just like drawing cards off of that and doing nothing.
Yeah, do it, because I still have this like 4/2 that I flashed in for 1 mana. Are you going to do anything about that? Or
I love when you put like into the story on the stack and then they just sit there for a second and then they draw a card with Maze Mind Tome and you're like, you don't have anything. Anyway, I don't feel great about this.
You've convinced me on the Esper thing. That's the nail in the coffin for me. I think this deck is out of here.
It's out of here.
And it'll be replaced by Esper Doom.
I think Esper's definitely going to jump in on this.
As the de facto control deck.
Like, I don't like Esper Doom Foretold because I haven't played it, but playing against it, I hate it. But it just seems so much better than this. So this deck is definitely out of here.
You know, you could do an Esper Doom Foretold. You can throw a Turgrid in there so that every time your opponent sacks something, you get it.
Ooh, that would be interesting. Too bad.
And then you sack that for your thing.
So you're saying I should be playing Jund Adventures? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, that sounds great. I don't know.
Let's throw it together. I think,
See, I'm of the opinion that you should just put Valky in everything at this point because I was so impressed by that card. So yeah, rule, throw Valky in.
That'll be I'm going to try that. Well, actually, I don't have enough wild cards right now. When I have enough wild cards, I will try that. But
didn't you just open a bunch of Valkyries in your prize packs like I did?
Yeah, that'd be great. I have one. I used all my mythic wild cards on Goldspan Dragons because I didn't open any.
I opened 3 of those naturally too.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess I'm playing Rakdos because I opened a bunch of Valkyries, Goldspan Dragons, and no pathways except the red-black one. I opened like 3 or 4 of those.
Good job.
Like,
good for you. Do you want
Arena is
Do you want an applause?
I actually would. I was waiting. It was weird you didn't do it sooner.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to a deck that I'm probably going to build. Mono white aggro.
You're definitely going to build this.
Yeah, mono white aggro.
You're going to build it wrong. You're going to build it wrong, but you're going to build it.
I will definitely build it wrong.
Because you're going to play red.
I'm going to play red. So it's mono white / Boros aggro. So this deck did actually, it did all right. going into
This is what I lost to in the standard challenge that I played in.
that's funny.
Yeah, I just got.
Oh
hosed
right,
by
but you were
Mono.
playing rogues. You weren't playing
I was playing Snogs.
snows, right?
Yeah.
Snow rogues, which is actually
Which I guess I said I was going to talk about when we talked about rogues, but I never did. I was playing the one drop that levels up
yeah
instead of the
Ascendant
stupid
Spirit.
one drop that I hate.
Here we go.
Yeah,
that's a card.
it was really good.
Yeah.
It just turns out Faceless Haven's not that good in rogues because you never really want to tap out on your own turn.
No, that makes sense.
But the Ascendant Spirit is better than the Merfolk Windropper, which, as you know, it's been my goal the past
to get
season
rid of
to
that.
replace that card with literally anything.
Yeah. You could play. There is a new human rogue that is just like the old human rogue, the blue one. It's like a 1/2 that has flash, and when it comes in, it gives a creature -2/-0.
Oh yeah, it's just like it. It's just worse.
But worse, it's like almost strictly worse.
Why wouldn't I play the other one? But actually, you don't want it to be a human for.
Oh right, you can't be a human, right? For one with what is it?
Of one mind.
Of one mind. I was gonna say one with nothing. That's a different card.
Different card. Not quite as good.
Not. Anyway, so let's go back to this aggro deck.
Yeah.
So basically, cat's out of the bag. Jeff thinks that I'm gonna build it Boros because I want to play Showdown of the Skalds, which is true. I do want to play that, and I probably will do that and just splash. Just for
Big
that
mistake.
And
Something in my throat.
I disagree. But so this is the deck basically. So the deck is playing. Let's see. I don't know any of the names of these cards. This is terrible. I should know this. But you're playing
Savannah Lions. They're all just
Savannah Lions, basically. They're like
2-1 for 1.
Yeah, 2/1 for 1. But you're playing the 2/1 for 1 that you can boast it with 1 and a white to make another 1/1, right? Then you have the guy from M21 who's the 3/1 that you can discard a card and it gains indestructible until on turn and it taps. You're playing like
probably some Selfless Saviors.
Yeah, Selfless Saviors to make it harder to kill things, and then Maul of the Skyclaves to give things flying in first strike and buff it up and all that kind of
Does
stuff.
this deck even play Skyclave Apparition?
No, I don't think so.
I think I was surprised that my opponents just never played one. Then it's like, I guess 3 mana is a lot. The deck I played against too was running Glorious Anthem.
Yes, that'll do it.
And the Basri Cat as well.
Yeah, Basri to get counters on things and do stuff. So
that was like their top end because I played against straight mono white, so no Showdown of the Skalds. That's the top end. So these 3 drops were where they ended.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Boros deck cuts one of those for the Showdown. I'm not totally sure.
So I didn't see Basri. So I was playing against the Boros version. I didn't see Basri Cat or Skyclaver, any other 3 drops, but they were playing Robber of the Rich and they were playing the Showdown, of course.
So that version I really don't like. I don't like. I just don't like decks with bad mana. And if you're trying to play all these white 1-drops into the red 2-drop, like, yeah, mana's okay now because we have the pathways, but you still don't have any actual dual lands. All the actual dual lands have to play tap.
Yes. So I don't like the Robber of the Rich as much, but I really like. Oh, man, why can I not remember that? What is that card's name? The 2/1, or sorry, the 3/1 from M21. Anyway, whatever that card is called, I actually like it.
You discard a card to give it indestructible
Yes.
and tap it.
But I do like it with Showdown of the Skalds because now you can keep all the cards in your hand just for fodder to keep them alive. And then all the cards that you draw after the Skalds, you play those cards and give it counters. And then every time they try to kill it or anything, you just discard the card from your hand instead. And you're not losing cards that way. Because most of the time with that situation is you have 1 card left, you have to discard it, you can't play cards anymore. But with the Showdown, you have cards to play. They just aren't in your hand. I don't know. I don't think it's amazing, but I definitely like it. And
I guess I don't like that there's so much stuff that gets around indestructible right now.
that is very true.
Like, as the Rakdos sack player, I just kind of LOL and I steal it with Claim the Firstborn, bash you for a bunch, and then sacrifice it to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that is true.
But
that does make sense.
and that's why I don't like the dog that much either. And then there's so many Brazen Borrowers as well. which isn't like the best. It's Seasoned Hallowblade.
Seasoned Hallowed Blade. That's what it is.
So I actually just went to look at the top mono white performer from the thing to get it, and they didn't play any. So then I had to go to the next one. I was like, what? Really? Okay.
All right, so I'll probably build a terrible version, is what you say. Yeah.
But I will note that these are both mono white, no red splash. I think on the weekend, the mono white with no splash did do better. Because, so here's the reason I don't like the splash, even for Showdown of the Scalds, which is obviously powerful. You just want Faceless Haven and like 18 or 16 snow-covered plains.
Yeah.
I think, because you just want everything to come out smooth, no tap lands, nothing like that. And you don't want to play Pathways because they make your Faceless Haven worse. And I think Faceless Haven, like Showdown of the Scalds in an aggro deck, you got to tap out for a whole turn, and then you're telegraphing what you're going to play on the next turn. So I get it. It's like, they wrath my board, I play this, draw 4 cards. But if they wrath my board, I just attack them with Faceless Haven and then play a 2-drop. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a better way to kind of accomplish the don't wrath me thing. I think Showdown of the Scalds is the most overrated card from the new set. I'm just going to say that.
Wow.
I think it's a very powerful card, but like in an aggro deck, taking a whole turn off and then telling your opponents what you're going to play is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like if I'm playing a wrath, I'll just hold it. Wait for you to play all that junk because you have to play it next turn, and then wrath you.
I mean, hopefully by that time you're dead, so you can't decide. But I guess you just
you're not, because they took a whole turn to play Showdown of the Scalds. So it's like people are comparing it to Experimental Frenzy. Boy, is it not Experimental Frenzy.
No, it's not.
Wow, it's way worse.
Yeah, it's not Experimental Frenzy. Okay, I do see what you're saying. And I understand. And now that I'm looking at, this is Anna Wegner. Is this pretty sure this is the first mono white deck list I ran into that was from the top.
Yep. That's the one I looked at that did not play.
It's playing Seasoned Hallowblade in the sideboard, first of all. So
okay. I missed that.
There are 4 in the sideboard. She's also playing Funeral Longboat in the sideboard, 1 copy of, which I don't know why that's there, but I'm so happy it's there. That's hilarious, and I don't know, I don't know what that's about, but
it's probably wrong, Anna. But
I think
hey, you went 7 and 2.
If you were like, you know what, I don't know what else to put in my sideboard. Let's just throw something like this. Maybe let's just put Ox Plow combo in my sideboard just for fun. Just so when people look at my deck list, they see it and they're like,
it's just,
do they use that?
Good point. This is an open deck list tournament. It's just to make them wonder.
So, that seems pretty fun.
I love the 16 planes, 4 Castle Ardenvale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why these aren't snow covered with Faceless Haven though.
Yeah,
that's my critique of the deck.
I agree with that. This looks like it was a deck that was built almost before the set came out, and they decided to play Codespell Cleric and Battlefield Raptor, and that's about it. Yeah,
because none of her, like, she has a couple double whites, but they're the expensive ones. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Legion.
I would play 16 planes for Faceless Haven, or 16 snow covered planes for Faceless
instead
Haven
of the Ardenvales.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've been impressed with this deck overall. I've lost to it. It seems like the mono white aggro decks of days of yore.
Yeah.
When aggro was good. Like it doesn't have quite the same explosiveness because there's not. What's that card that was the elephant that you could convoke and put counters on everything?
Oh god, the Loxodon thing.
Yeah. It doesn't have that, but it still feels like you can really lose to this thing in a hurry.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go full. I'm pulling deep here, but I think I'm gonna go full Craig Wesco and just play this mono white aggro deck. I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I'm giving mono white top tier and Boros out of here.
All right, you convinced me. You convinced me.
Yeah.
Play mono white. I do like white. Anyway, let's. Wow, we spent a lot more time on that than I thought we were going to.
Yeah.
We're going to the ultimatum decks. Let's just kind of lump these together because they're A little similar.
Teamer and Sultai,
Yeah.
different ultimatums.
So
Sultai plays the Sultai one, and Teamer plays the Teamer one.
Jeff has said this Sultai deck is called Sultimatum, which I do like. Of course, yeah. Sultimatum. It's pretty good.
I heard it somewhere, but I can't remember where, so I can't take credit.
All right, well, it's somewhere out there, but we're going to continue showing. You should say Sultimatum and Cadillac. Remember, don't forget Cadillac from last episode.
That's an important
one. Anyway, I haven't. So the only time I ran into this deck, it was actually like a Tybalt's Trickery package that was playing like Vorinclex and a couple of different things.
So maybe we can talk about Teamer first.
Yeah, let's do Teamer, I guess.
Because I just think that deck's bad. So
basically, the Teamer deck looks almost exactly like the one before. It's playing a lot of the same cards, cultivating and your fertile footsteps into your Beanstalk Giants and stuff. With the ultimatum, obviously, an Ugin. But instead of Terror of the Peaks, where you ultimatum and immediately win, you're playing Goldspan Dragon, which doesn't immediately win. It just seems just worse. Like, I almost want to play the old version because it does seem like if you ultimatum, you want it.
So you've been playing it a bit.
Right? I have played it, yeah. So I was playing it, and I was actually doing all right. But it was, a lot of the decks I was playing were similar decks. It was like either I was playing mirror matches, which almost like the exact same deck list, or something similar, big mana decks. And it was like, man, I would cast every ultimatum I had, and it would just, I wasn't winning.
And squeak through.
It was like so weird. I was like, oh, this is my third Ugin I'm playing. Because we're playing Ugin to Ugin and then shocking each other's Ugins and trying. It was just like a weird game. And, when you ultimatum with Terror of the Peaks in your deck, you just hit Beanstalk Giant and the Terror of the Peaks, and they're usually dead by that point. So.
Yeah. So I didn't think this deck was good last season.
Yeah.
I thought it was something that people played as an answer to the mono green food deck because it really beat the shit out of that. But I don't know. People would say, "Oh, it has this awesome late game," which they mean the ultimatum and Ugin. Neither of which they're 7 and 8 drops, and neither guarantee a win.
They don't.
Like you can play those cards and still lose.
Because the thing
is, if your plan is to ramp up to a 7 and 8 drop, they better just win.
Exactly.
Right.
So the thing that,
and then people would also say, but it has such a relevant like mid game, it could just win that way too. And I always was like, you know what? It seems like that because it's playing good cards, but let's be honest, guys. Like a couple of Bone Crushers and some Terror of the Peaks is never gonna win in the metagame we have. The decks are too powerful. That's just not how this deck ever wins.
Yeah.
So you're lying to yourself if you're saying that you're just winning a lot of these mid-range battle fests without drawing your 7 and 8 drops. You're all in on 7 and 8 drops, and your 7 and 8 drops just aren't that good.
It is hard, especially because when you let's say they're at 20, right? You're trying to bolt them to death. Even if you ult Ugin and you hit another Ugin, which is basically the big thing, or a Goldspan Dragon, it seems fine, but all the time, I really think that if you don't ultimatum and win on that turn or the next turn, you're just doing it wrong. And the new version that's kind of come out just doesn't seem worth it. It's fun to play.
But the old version would whiff on ultimatum too.
Yeah, but at least you have...
This version just has even more chance to do that.
But the new version doesn't have at least when you have the Terror of the Peaks and you hit a Beanstalk, you're going to dome them for 11 or something. Just from playing the ultimatum. Even if the cards...
I've played against this deck where it's they hit Terror of the Peaks and Ugin. And I'm just I still win.
Yeah, I mean, that will happen.
You're hitting your two best cards.
But at least in that deck, you have a roll of the dice. So you're you could immediately win by resolving an ultimatum. In the new version, you can't. So, I don't know. It seems... It's fun to play. I wouldn't take it to a tournament. I don't think it's that good. I think this.
So that's
how we feel. That's out of here. I don't know.
So Teamer's out of here, right?
Teamer's out of here.
Especially with the advent of Sultimatum, because they play the Sultai Ultimatum. Now, if you don't know what that does, I'll explain it to you because I had this happen to me over the weekend. It goes and gets 3 monocolored cards with different names out of your deck. Your opponent chooses one that goes back into your deck. and the other 2 get cast for free. So what the Sultai deck is doing is it goes to get Vorinclex, Alrund's Epiphany, which takes the extra turn, and either Tybalt or like Kiora Best's the Sea God.
So it is important to note that they are specifically getting Valky, which is a monocolored card.
Which is monocolored,
is a
right?
double.
They're never casting Valky.
But the thing is that Ultimatum says get monocolored cards, and this is a card that skirts that, which is maybe a reason why there should be possibly a rule change. But continue.
That is kind of bullshit. But I think the main plan is to get Kiora Best the Sea God, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
So no matter what you give them, they're hitting the first 2 chapters of Kiora Best the Sea God right now, because they either get to take an extra turn or they get Vorinclex, which puts 2 counters on it. So they get an 8/8 hexproof, and they tap your whole team and like all of your non-land permanents, and they don't untap. In my experience, it's best to make them throw away the Alrund's Epiphany. But you still lose. I mean, like, it's still... I don't know. It's very rare that you would beat them resolving this card, because they get either a 6/6 trample haste and a saga that's going to make an 8/8 and tap all your stuff and steal your best thing next turn. You know, like, that's kind of the best case scenario for you. So I like this better than the Teamer Ultimatum, because it's basically guaranteed what you're getting.
Yeah.
You're getting this saga.
You built your deck. Yeah, you built your deck to specifically get these pieces. And the choice is, you don't really have a choice. It's, the worst.
Now, here's the fun part. I beat this deck as rogues because I milled them and checked their graveyard and knew that they probably didn't have a Vorinclex, or I just let it resolve because they didn't have anything. So they went and got, like, Cultivate. Like, they got random shit. I was like, that's
go
fun.
ahead, cast a Cultivate. Take 2 more cards out of your deck. That's fine.
You have, like, 14 cards left in your deck. You get whatever you want.
Yeah, have fun. I'll get rid of the good one, and then you play the other bullshit ones that milled you even more. So,
yeah. I actually, like, could have countered it and won the game, but I wanted to see what they would go get.
Or you wanted to teach a very valuable lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
I
was more just curious.
But I
was like, this could be a mistake. Maybe they win, but I don't think so.
With any of the Ultimatum decks, the mill plan is really rough, because at the end, like, you can not play your ultimatums because you don't have enough cards in your deck to just, like, get rid of them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
So beating this with rogues felt pretty trivial. On the other hand, when I played against this with Rakdos, it felt like there was no way I could win. I literally lost a game where my opponent just sat there and played lands until they had 7 and then played Emergent Ultimatum. I was like, well, that was an embarrassing loss, because I'm sitting there, like, I'm playing my Woe Strider, and I have, like, Claim the Firstborns in my hand, and I'm, like, drawing more cards with Village Rights, but I'm just not doing enough damage to kill them before they get to 7, and then they just slam Emergent Ultimatum.
Like,
it's like, huh.
There you go. Should have played white weenie.
Yeah. You did nothing.
You did nothing. So with Ultimatum, what are we going to say about this?
I don't think this deck can last when it has a weak matchup against Gruul and Rogues. Mm-hmm. I think this was kind of a flavor. It's going to be popular for a few weeks while Rakdos is the best deck, because it really, really eats that alive. Like, what's the win rate matrix say? Rakdos was 32% against this thing. Like, the games really do feel unwinnable from the Rakdos side, because they're just going to slowly build towards that ultimatum. The only game I won, I was just lucky to, like, I held my duress all game and then ripped it right before, and I took the ultimatum out of their hand. And then they didn't draw another one. So that's how I won that game. And they didn't draw, like, an Alrund's Epiphany to take an extra turn or anything like that. That's how you have to do it, I think. You just have to, like, maybe try to race them with discard, basically. Try to make them discard cards so they don't have lands and ramp spells. But bind the Old Gods just hurts with that so much, because they kill your thing and ramp.
Yeah, that's true.
That matchup feels like a joke. But I think once the other decks become a bit more popular, like, I don't know. I don't know enough about the deck, but it feels like it's just too narrow-minded and one-dimensional to really be a mainstay. So I'm giving this one Out of Here.
Out of Here. I agree. So I think let's run it back. Starting at the top, Rakdos.
Top tier.
Is it?
Out of Here.
Rogues.
Top tier.
Gruul.
Top tier.
Naya.
Out of Here.
Sultai Control.
Out of Here.
Mono White.
Top tier.
Boros.
Out of Here.
Sultimatum.
Out of Here.
Teamer Ramp.
Out of Here. Sultimatum's maybe the one I'm least confident on. Originally, I was going to say Sultai Control, but you've really convinced me that Esper Control is just the better control deck.
I think it is. But yeah, so we'll see. You know, who knows? Who can even be sure? But
like, I'm wondering if my disdain for ramp decks just gets in the way of my rating for Sultimatum. Because I don't think either, like, you played Teamer, I guess, but I don't think either of us are in love with
I thought it was fun,
decks.
but the ramp decks, you know, they never, you know, seem that exciting. Yeah. I would rather be killing them. And it's more, it feels better to kill them before they get to do their stuff than to actually do the stuff, which ultimately isn't that great. And I'd also rather lose to Ugin and be like, well, it's an Ugin, than like, there's all these soldiers killing me, you know.
They don't make ramp decks like they used to, man. Like, where's my Uro? Where's my Nissa? It's bullshit.
Like they used to. That's classic. That's so good. So, Jeff, if you were going to play in a tournament this weekend, what would you play?
I think I'd play Rogues. I think Sultimatum's going to be on the rise to beat the Rakdos decks. And I think there's still going to be a lot of Rakdos, but I think I can work on that matchup to get it close to 50-50. And then hopefully my knowledge of the matchup will, you know, help me prevail.
Yeah, nice.
But if I was just wanted to go level 1, because it's never wrong to just go level 1, right? And just play Sultimatum.
Yeah, totally. But I do think
I'm going Rogues.
I think I agree with you. I would probably play Rogues because seeing these numbers make it seem like Rogues is definitely viable, and I already know how to play that deck, and I have the pieces for it. I can just add.
That's the other thing too. It's more important to play a deck that you feel confident with than, like, that's been shown time and again that, like, even if a deck is quote unquote like a poor metagame decision, the best players that are known for piloting that deck still do well, because it's more important to understand how to play your deck and the different matchups than it is to just like net deck the best deck the day before the event.
Exactly.
And play
it. Yeah,
you know?
I definitely agree. Yeah, so that is our...
And then you just have Paulo who plays whatever he wants in whatever metagame and always wins.
I mean, like, what are you going to do? I'm not Paulo, so, you know. Yeah. But that is our first top tier or out of here segment. Moving on to our last call. I hear the bell. It's dinging.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding-a-ding. I am ready for my last beer of the night. Hey. We picked the same one. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
We both picked Cup and Saucer, the English ale that Jeff brought.
Who's Brett? Are you cheating on me with another podcast co-host?
Brett Joff is what I was going to say. Yeah, I just thought that this was, like, you know, easier to drink. The other one seemed like it was a lot. And this one just tickled my fancy.
I think this beer is really strong. We'll get to that, you know, the specific rating in a minute.
Yes.
But I'm a huge fan of Imperial Stouts, as you know. And the other one's good, too. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But it just didn't meet... I think I might just have a really high bar for that style.
I agree.
So, anyways, this one felt like a stronger example of its style than the other one.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. So this Cup and Saucer, this English ale, feels exactly what I'm looking for. And it really goes back. Like, man... I could drink this on a hike, is what, and the can exudes that. It really,
and when I read English ale as like a consumer, to me that means it's not super hoppy. It's more about the body,
Exactly.
the malt,
And
that's exactly what this delivers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really taste any particular hops here. You know,
No.
there's no like Citra punching me in the mouth or, Cascade or something. It's just, they used some hops to get the bitterness, but that's not what it's really about. It doesn't taste or smell strongly of hops. It's more about that malt body.
Exactly.
And that's what I really like, that style. I know it's not that popular here. But when I read English ale, that's what I'm expecting, and that's exactly what I got.
And I'm usually not a huge fan of English ales, so I wasn't expecting to like this so much. But it really gives me something that I'm like, this is nice. I could drink a lot of these and feel great about it. So I'm gonna go. Also, I feel like we talk about our rating scale a lot and don't actually really explain what it is. Not that I'm going to go through the whole thing, but when we say bronze to mythic, we're talking about the tiers. Remember, from Arena. It's bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, mythic is what we're talking about.
Correct.
While I just spew out different names of
I was worried you'd forget that last one.
Mythic, because I've never been there. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that. You said that.
Oh, I just pretend it's not there because I've never been there, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Wait, isn't Diamond 4 the highest?
I'm pretty sure Diamond 4. Ouch. Not even Diamond 1. Oh, fuck you. That's the worst. Anyway, with that said, I picked your beer.
Yeah.
And I think this is really good. I think, this could be a diamond. I
was gonna say this is diamond for me. I was on the fence between platinum and diamond.
Other English ales I've had, I have not been a big fan of, and this is definitely a great one. So, worth checking out. But let's go on to the Imperial Stout, that Sawdust City.
Yeah, like I said, I think when it says coffee, vanilla, Imperial Stout, I probably just have expectations that are really high.
Yeah.
When I have an Imperial Stout, what I want on that first sip is to really just get like it just surprises your palate, and I didn't totally get that from this. It was, you could taste it was strong, and you could taste the flavors they're describing, but it wasn't just whoa, that's a big shock to my system kind of thing.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. When you said you could taste the alcohol, I 100% you can taste a lot of alcohol, and it's just very upfront, and it really takes over a lot of stuff, and it feels like it was a little overdone. If it had a little bit less alcohol taste, as far I think the punch that I want is the flavor, not just alcohol in my face.
That's what I mean when it overwhelms your palate. Yes. I don't just mean because it's 9% alcohol, because anyone can do that, right? It's
I like sneaky stuff. I like 10% that taste like pumpkin pie.
And I don't mind if your Russian Imperial Stouts taste boozy because they are 10%.
Duh.
But it's the other flavors that should be kind of whoa, that's awesome.
That aren't getting overshadowed by this alcohol taste. That was my feeling with it.
That being said, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
I liked it too. I don't want to give it a terrible rating because I have such a intense... I really love a great Imperial Stout, but I wouldn't want to give this to someone, be like, hey, this is what this is. You like Imperial Stouts? Pick up this. I would never say that.
Mm-hmm. I have a few on my list that I would recommend somebody who introduce somebody to the style with before this.
Yeah, I'm going to say gold with this one just because I don't think I'll really see it a lot in my future.
Okay, I was thinking platinum, but
that's fine. I'm kind of on the fence a little bit.
I still enjoyed it.
I also enjoyed it, but I also enjoy gold beers as well. So
yeah, I'm not saying gold's bad. I'm just saying, I don't know. It's hard for me to put a well-made beer of this style into gold just because it is one of my favorite styles. And this is good. There's nothing wrong with it, but
I just think I'm never going to pick this up again.
I just have 3 or 4 mythic levels that I'm comparing it to.
For sure. I usually think a platinum might be a beer that I'll come back to often, and this is just not one of them. I'll drink it if it's maybe in like 3 years I'll come back to it, but I'm definitely gonna rush out and probably get more of these cup and saucers because I really like them. I'm not gonna go back and get the that's
Okay.
that's out.
You're not Russian for imperial stouts.
Oh God, that's a good one though.
No, I would buy this again if if I was craving a couple imperial stouts and they didn't have one of my favorites around.
Yeah, I mean I'd probably get the Wellington one that we like. So that's
Yeah, like my real favorites are all from Montreal.
Yeah,
It's hard to get them.
but
here.
like at this price point, which is like $4, the other ones are like a bit more expensive. The one we had from Wellington was a lot better in my opinion, so I would probably just go back to that guy.
That's fair. I'm gonna stick with platinum, but
That's fine. I'm not trying to change you. I'm just wanting you to know that I'm serious about what I'm saying.
yeah.
Anyway, it looks like it's time to close down. So yeah. You can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, you might also find us on MTG Arena. We are Arena Regulars Podcast.
Also, if you want to find me personally, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Zulberg, Zeulberg. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me as Blues Brews MTG on Twitter or on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 10 p.m. Eastern. So some late night streaming at twitch.tv/bluesbrews, all one word.
Yep. And if you would please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you can leave a review or just follow us, that really helps us and makes a huge difference. We'd really appreciate that.
I'm going to thank you in advance for doing that.
Perfect. So this has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you not to play Teamer Ultimatum because it's the worst ultimatum.
Good night. All right, that's fine.